what is more surprising to you guys, that Drew Lock has gotten beat out, or that Jameis looks as good as he looks right now?
I think it would have to be the Jameis Winston one, because I feel like with Teddy, we've seen him in Carolina. He was really good. Granted, the team didn't make the playoffs, but we saw when he played, they were a pretty good offense. We've seen him in Minnesota make the playoffs. He was solid. So we've seen him in situations where he's a solid starting quarterback. He's made the playoffs. He's been in the playoffs. He's been in situations. As for Drew Lock, he hasn't. I like Denver, so I'm gonna be nice. He hasn't been good. He shows flashes, he shows signs, but on a consistent basis, he hasn't been good. So I think right now, Denver, looking at their team, they're kind of in a win now situation, and I think Teddy gives them the best chance for them to win. You get Cortland Sutton coming back, Jerry Jeudy in year 2. So I think with that being said, Teddy Bridgewater just looks like the guy who can get you wins on a consistent basis. For the Saints, the dude got his eyes fixed. We joke about 30 for 30. It's a funny joke. 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. But Jameis Winston for this offense, Drew Brees, I feel like he limited his offense because he couldn't throw the deep ball accurately. Jameis Winston has that power and that ability to throw the ball deep, and if he can, throw it at an accurate rate on a consistent basis, this offense can definitely implode and it can be bigger. So I think with Mr. Gadget guy, Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston is just a better quarterback, and I figured he was going to win this regardless. So I think at that point, you have to just go with the better talent in Jameis Winston.
To that point exactly, that's why I'm not as surprised. I think Jameis was just an overall better quarterback than Taysom Hill, and it's a fact. Unfortunately, you're right, he did have the 30 for 30, but now he's got 20/20 vision, of course, and now he can actually throw the football accurately. So I might shock a few saying that I'm upset that Teddy's our starting quarterback, but at the same time,
why are you upset?
I'm upset because I know what Teddy Bridgewater is. And you said that he played well in Carolina. He played okay. He had 15 touchdowns in 15 games. That's not good. That's not what I want out of my starting quarterback, especially when you got Robbie, you got DJ Moore, you got Curtis Samuel. CMC was out a good portion of the season, but regardless of that, you should have been slinging it a lot more, and it should have resulted in more than 15 touchdowns. Drew Lock hasn't been good up until this point, but we can't forget that last season he did not have a preseason. So going into this year, this was kind of like his sophomore season to really prove himself as a quarterback. And he got a full training camp. He's been playing pretty good up until this point. And I understand that, we made the trade for Teddy Bridgewater and we gave up stuff, so of course we wanted to see him in action. But why not take the chance on Drew Lock? Drew Lock is going into year 3. I'm not saying he would be Josh Allen, but we saw Josh Allen up at his 3rd year finally break out into this quarterback that he is now. Why can't we just take the same chance on Drew Lock? So now we make Teddy the starter. Now we kill Drew's confidence. Even if Teddy plays bad and we put in Drew, his confidence still isn't going to be there. I'm sure that he's going to be ready whenever his number is called on, but it's not the same as if, Fangio goes in and says to him, listen, Drew, we trust you. We want you to be the guy.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Let's hear it.
You said, this is, Drew's 3rd year, and you brought up Josh Allen.
Yep.
I think Josh Allen was a little different because in year 2, he showed flashes.
No, absolutely.
And if I'm not mistaken, they made the playoffs in year 2, and they blew it.
But what I will say is both his first 2 seasons, he was dead last in completion percentage.
Did Drew Lock show you any flashes in year 2 to solidify his spot as a starter?
In year 1, he played 6 games. And in one of those games, he had a 300-yard, 3-touchdown against the Texans, which were a playoff team at the time. Mm-hmm. But regardless of that,
always had a bad defense.
Absolutely. Their defense really was never really good. Now, you look at last season, he didn't have a preseason. Of course, he was the starter. He was kind of shaky. He showed me some flashes there, but mostly it was not something that I wanted to see.
Okay.
But again, he didn't have a preseason. This preseason, he's been playing very well. And you kind of just smacked him in the face by making Teddy the guy. You know what Teddy's going to be. If Drew isn't good, you can throw Teddy in and we'll be okay. But my thing is, you're right. We're not in a situation where we are a favorite in the AFC or something like that. But let's say we start Drew Lock and he booms. Our team is good enough where we have talent all over the roster that we can actually be a contender if he pops. If he doesn't pop, then who cares? We go and we get a good draft pick the next season. So I feel like there was really nothing to lose by starting Drew Lock except seeing him rise to his potential.
I'm not surprised by either. I thought Teddy Bridgewater was going to be the starter. I'm not a Drew Lock believer, nor do I think people should believe in Drew Lock. His play is erratic. He hasn't shown me enough that he can be a good quarterback. Maybe a good backup. You know, he can bring in some sparks. He can stick around, kind of like a Ryan Fitzpatrick. I wouldn't be surprised at that. Teddy's stable. You know what you're getting out of him. His numbers have never popped off, but I think Denver doesn't need somebody who can pop off. I think they need somebody who's going to protect the ball, and that's what Teddy Bridgewater is going to do. And Vic Fangio's job this year is on the line. If he doesn't win games, he's going to get fired.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I'll let you finish.
I think if he's definitely going to be on the hot seat, and knowing that, he's thinking to himself, okay, I need to win, and I can't trust Drew Lock. On to Jameis Winston. I've been waiting for this for a year, hoping for this to happen. You don't know how long I've been dreaming about a moment like this to happen. Last year, Jameis Winston has a 30 for 30 season. Obviously, he becomes last year basically after that season. Right. Jameis Winston has that 30 for 30 season. He becomes a meme. People make fun of him. He's one of 5 quarterbacks to throw for 5,000 yards. Not a lot of quarterbacks can throw for 30 touchdowns. And I said it back then. It's Bruce Arians' offense. Every quarterback in their second year in Arians' offense has a much better season. Tom Brady, because he's so damn great, didn't have that high turnover season. I said on this show and on our beginning episodes that Jameis Winston, if he comes back to Tampa Bay, they will make the playoffs with him, and he will have a breakout season. Obviously, they got Tom Brady. Great move by them to do that, of course, because Tom Brady is the GOAT quarterback. But I said, whatever team Jameis goes to, he's going to thrive. He is going to thrive. Obviously, he goes to the Saints. Didn't get a chance to play because they had Drew Brees there. He had to sit for a year. And I think that's possibly the best thing to happen to Jameis Winston's career. Jameis Winston's stats are the same as Drew Brees' stats before he got to the Saints. With the Chargers, Drew Brees' stats was very similar. Jameis Winston is going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league with the Saints. Taysom Hill, like you mentioned, he's a gadget guy. He's not a good quarterback. You put him in for some series, and he said it. I think before the season started, like in the offseason, he said that if the Saints don't view me as a quarterback, I'm going to go somewhere where they do. Well, good luck. Nobody views you that way. Nobody views you as a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. Name me a team, and I can't tell you that team would want Taysom Hill to be the starting quarterback. Jameis Winston is a legit starter, a former Pro Bowler. With Sean Payne is going to be great. And Marquez Callaway, undrafted wide receiver, he has been unbelievable.
Yep.
If Michael Thomas can get over this off-the-field stuff and drama and finally come back, then the Saints have something going. But Jameis Winston, Callaway connection, I think that's going to be very great. I'm a Jameis believer. I've been a believer. And just like I was a believer in Ryan Tannehill 2-3 seasons ago and said, trust me, he's a franchise guy, Jameis is a franchise guy.
Nice.
There's no doubt about it. I have no doubts about that.
So where do you see the Saints? Do you see them in the playoffs?
I think
because I feel like they only lost Breeze for the most part.
They are the 6th or 7th seed.
But Michael Thomas is going to be out for a little while.
Yeah, they are the 6th or 7th seed. I think the Saints are still a very great team. That last spot is going to be between them, Arizona, and Seattle.
Yeah, I think that whole conference, Seattle, Arizona, San Fran, Rams, that's going to be
dogfight.
But Jameis, to me, I can't wait until he shows out. I'm happy for him.
I don't want to go too into this, but you said Fangio's on the hot seat. We had a lot of injuries last season on that defense, and he made us one of the better defenses in the league with backups. So I think he still gets another season.
You think so?
I do think so.
Look at the numbers, though. The defense wasn't that good.
I agree, because we had a ridiculous number of injuries to our secondary. We lost Von Miller. Our linebacking core isn't good as is. I want to say we were still a top 15 defense regardless of that.
I'll just fact check you real quick.
Okay.
I remember seeing it one time, and they were a bottom 20 defense.
Let's see. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe.
This is in points allowed, by the way.
Okay.
They were the 25th defense.
which isn't good. I'm pretty.
Yeah.
You said points allowed.
And points allowed, yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're right. 25 is not good, but I could have sworn maybe I was looking at yards. You could say you see if I'm wrong there too. But regardless of that, our best corner last season was Ojemudia. We were just so depleted at corner. He made us float above water, even though our team really wasn't that good regardless. But we ended up with the 10th pick overall when we should have been a bottom 5 team there too. So I think we still give him another season, especially because defensively, I like where his head's at, especially with the talent that we have this year. There's no excuse. Our secondary is probably, in my opinion, the best in the league. Von Miller's back to pair with Bradley Chubb. Bradley Chubb really broke out last season, so I definitely believe our defense is going to be one of the better ones in the league. So
what I thought was weird about the Jameis situation is that a lot of people are defending Taysom Hill on social media because Taysom Hill is, I guess, a good guy to root for.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are defending Taysom Hill and saying, oh, he deserves to be the starter, all this. Jameis had his chance, and he didn't succeed. I mean, Jameis was never a bad quarterback. Was he a top one in the league? No, he wasn't, but he was never a bad quarterback. Tampa Bay always had one of the worst defenses in the NFL. It wasn't up until recent when they drafted Carlton Davis and they drafted Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy-Bunting, and they got Shaq Barrett was when they started to thrive, and Sue. But outside of that, and Vita Vea. But outside of that, I mean, they were never a top defense. Jameis was always having to carry that load. He was never a bad quarterback. Mm-hmm. I don't get this sympathy for Taysom Hill.
Probably just because he's a good guy.
You battled for the QB spot, you lost. I guess some of the anger comes from the fact that Sean Payton, in a way, didn't really make it a competition.
Mm-hmm.
He knew the guy was Jameis.
Yeah.
And he gave Taysom Hill a pseudo competition. But fans were mad because in versus Jacksonville, Taysom Hill, he didn't play with the starters. And the backups, Taysom Hill was horrible with them. But in week 1 of the preseason, Jameis didn't start with the starters. Taysom Hill started with the starters. Sean Payton in those 2 preseason games, first game, Taysom started with the starters. Jameis played with the bench guys. Second game, Jameis started with the starters. Taysom played with the bench guys. And Jameis played better when he played with the backups and when he played with the starters. It was a fair competition. Jameis won it fair and square. There's no competition. And this year, it's going to be hard to be better than Tampa, I'll be honest. But I think Winston will have a good year. I really believe in him.
I don't doubt that either. I feel like Jameis, if he can just limit the turnovers, of course, he's an excellent QB. And I think that this year, especially that, he can see my only fear is the weapons. Now, you got Callaway. Kamara, of course. Kamara's going to be force-fed a bunch, but I don't know if he's ever been known to really throw to the running back.
He will in that offense.
I think so, too. I think he'll be left with no choice. But until Michael Thomas comes back, it's going to be a struggle for them to move the ball. Is it,
though? Because wasn't MT out for a portion of the beginning of the season last year?
It was after, he was healthy.
He was out for the
majority
of the year.
And Kamara was basically carrying that offense. So I think Winston can do it.
Emmanuel was on the team, though.
Traquan Smith,
I
Jared
guess.
Cook. Yeah. But I mean, I think
Jared Cook was on.
I believe the Saints will be fine.
Yeah.
Even without MT, they'll be fine. Sean Payton is that great of a coach.
Kamara.